I think we're live.
All right, are we live, everybody? I think we are, and I think we're on. Welcome, everybody, to A Mighty Blaze. So
Yeah.
excited to be back here with the A Mighty Blaze family. And for those who are uninitiated, A Mighty Blaze got started at the start of the pandemic when everybody was in quarantine, and we really wanted to support independent bookstores, and we wanted to also connect authors with readers. And I know it was definitely a blessing for me when I published my first novel, The Kindest Lie, in February of 2021, a year into the pandemic. I was able to connect with so many readers through this amazing community. And now I'm excited to show the next book that's coming your way, People of Means. It's coming out from William Morrow HarperCollins in February, this coming February. Story of an upper middle class Black mother and daughter, both of them coming of age at different moments of racial reckoning in America. So 1950s, 60s Nashville, and 1992 Chicago. So available for pre-order right now. Enough about me. Now on to what everybody has been waiting for. We want to talk to the one and only Ann Garvin, who is the author of Bummer Camp. Bummer Camp. See, bummer camp, like summer camp. See what she did there? She's so creative. Want to welcome you, Ann, and tell everybody a little bit about you. So sit back while I talk about you, and you look, demure and mindful.
Okay.
Ann Garvin, PhD, is a USA Today bestselling author and finalist for the Thomas Wolfe Fiction Prize. She is the author of 6 funny and sad novels. So she makes you laugh and then she makes you cry all on the same page. That takes talent. She writes about people who do too much in a world that asks too much from them. Sounds very familiar to me. Mm-hmm. Ann worked as a registered nurse, and after receiving her PhD, taught exercise physiology and health psychology for 30 years in the University of Wisconsin system. She currently teaches creative writing at Drexel University in their low residency Master of Fine Arts program, and has held positions at Miami University and Southern New Hampshire in their Master of Fine Arts creative writing programs. Ann is the founder of the multiple award-winning Tall Poppy Writers, a group of traditionally published authors, of which I am one, very proudly so, committed to helping readers find their wonderful books. She's a sought-after speaker on writing, leadership, and health, and has taught extensively in New York, San Francisco, LA, Boston, and at festivals all over the country and even in Europe. So welcome, Ann.
Thank you. I got to shorten that bio. Too much information.
No, all good, all true stuff about you. And so I'm so excited to have you here. Tell us all about Bummer Camp. Let us know what the premise is of this book.
Well, the premise is that I wanted to write about a failed motivational speaker who turns a kids' theater camp into a camp for anxious and depressed adults, but doesn't have enough money for professionals. And so he staffs it with anxious and depressed college students. And it's called Bummer Camp.
That is so cool. So you, in the book, you've built this place for people who don't always fit in, right? And so I really relate to that as somebody who's always really stood on the outside of things looking in. So tell me, like, where did that idea come from? And is that part of you and your experience, your journey?
Well, I certainly know what it's like to be a fish out of water. I moved from the East Coast to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan when I was in 6th grade. And then I went to high school there, and I was the diversity in that town. So you can just imagine they were all blonde hair, blue-eyed, Finnish people, Polish people. And I came in from the East Coast with dark hair, and that's it. Like, that was the only difference. But yeah, I mean, I wrote about it for that. I was also a camp nurse at a sight impaired, hearing impaired, and differently abled camp when I got out of nursing school. So that was such an amazing experience. And it's such, like, there's something about writing about a closed world, like just a place where the boundaries are very small and the rules go only with that camp. And and then what that feels like to be part of that community, and then what happens when that community is threatened. And the group, essentially, it's, a sister story, because the two sisters that own the camp, it looks like the camp might be going under because of this failed motivational coach, and they have to use only the things they have at camp to save the day. And they both have different skills, let's say that. Like, one of them doesn't want to save it, and the other one really wants to save it, and they're always sort of at odds with each other.
Mm-hmm. Where was the inspiration for that? Did that come from any relationships that you have in your
Well,
life?
I mean, I think one of the things that I like about talking about people that are, I always say, like, in the front of this book, I dedicated it to all the weirdos. And when I say weirdos, I mean all of us. Like, we all have different skills. Like, I'm really good at some things and really terrible at other things. But this is the kind of place that sort of accepts everyone. And I like that idea. I wish the world was more like that. When I had an older brother that just really didn't fit in, and we were so at odds. We were just as different as can be. But even though we were and fought a lot, I always wondered what was going to become of him. He needed a place. And there's I've certainly felt that way in my life at different times when I've, not exactly liked what's going on. I wanted to switch lives a little bit. And so, I just kind of wanted to write about a place where everybody kind of finds their home. And then, what would you do if you had to save the day? What would you be able to pull yourself together and pull everybody together to, like, keep it going? And isn't that what we're always doing all the time? Like,
That is so
saving
true.
the day, whatever day it is, whether it's the political day, whether it's the house day, whether it's dinner, whether it's, do I have the soccer cleats? We're all saving the day all the time.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is,
And Sue Street repeated your line there that we're all weirdos in some way, and I really absolutely love that. I know I wrote an essay back in the day and for O Magazine about being bullied as a kid,
oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
and standing. Yeah, you remember that, right? And standing on the outside of things, and well, that's always been my journey. Trying to find my voice. Ever since I was a kid, and not feeling like I fit in, and then the character in my first book that I wrote about that I connected with the most was one who is this, 11-year-old white boy who, doesn't know where he fits in. And so
Mhm.
I've always been drawn to those stories. And so I'm really intrigued by that
Yeah.
idea in your book. And so is that who you were as like when you were even just growing up?
I
Were you
mean,
the one who was kind of, the
yeah,
weirdo?
I had the experience of being not that person. And then when I was right in that awkward age before puberty, that's when we moved. And we went from a completely different culture into a culture that was tiny and I did not understand. And so for a very small period of time, I got the feeling of what it was like to be bullied. And I certainly saw my brother bullied. And I think that's when I became a writer, not so much that I actually wrote, but because I became an observer. And then I became someone who adapted. And so I spent a lot of time understanding how hard you have to mask, how hard do you have to cope, how hard do you have to just to sort of fit into the world. It's what women have to do all the time.
All the time. And then being Black, I mean, I'm constantly code switching, right?
Yeah,
Putting on a mask, kind of being a chameleon, changing and morphing into who I need to be to survive the moment I'm
right.
in.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I just wanted to really lean into that when I was writing about it. Like, and I always say that when I'm all done writing, I want people to feel better about their own humanity. And when I say humanity, I mean differences. Like, I mean, that's one thing I'm sort of an open book. Like, I don't want people to think that everything comes easily for me, because they don't. I want people to understand that, I'm not saying a woe is me. I'm saying if it isn't working for me, it's probably not working for you. And we should all feel okay about the times that it's not working for us. And when we embarrass ourselves, or when we do something wrong, or we make a wrong decision, or maybe we make a decision that seems right, now it's wrong later. Like, I have no, I just have no desire to be the Instagram person that looks like they do it right all the time. Although, I mean, it's not like I post too many pictures of myself looking too horrendous, although I've been known to do that.
But you're right. In the social media era, is like
Yeah.
everybody, it looks like people have it together. Sometimes I get depressed when I look at people and I'm like,
Yes.
wow, they're always on fabulous vacations and they're eating the best food at the best
Yeah.
restaurants. And,
Yeah.
but it's
I
also
know
mirrors,
I should just take pictures of myself scrolling just before bedtime because that's what,
right? Doom scrolling.
yeah, like, and I look terrible and my hair is outrageous and I'm wearing like definitely not matching pajamas. You know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about summer camp. So, like, I've never been to summer camp. Like when I was a kid, I never did that, but it seems so cool. And with the s'mores and the campfires and all that. So did you do that as a kid? And tell us about your first experience at summer camp as a kid. If you did.
Well, I'll tell you, yes. I had one overnight with Girl Scouts and I cried the whole time. Like I was
Mhm.
so and I say this funnily, like I was so deliciously homesick. And when say that, I mean I wanted to just go have a cry and it felt really good and I really miss my mom. And then when she picked me up the next day, she was like, "How was it?" And I was like, "Oh my God, Mom, I was so homesick." And then the only other time I went to camp was when I was a camp nurse at this differently abled camp
Yeah.
right out of nursing school. So I never really had the idyllic experience of what people do talk about like a week away or a month away. I never had that until I was basically an adult. But and I didn't even know it was possible because in where I was from, we didn't have anything like that. Like, we didn't even have a post office. We didn't have a gas station. Like, it was such a tiny little town.
Right.
So I didn't really have that whole experience, and probably I always wanted it. And then that when I did have that experience, I couldn't believe how magical it was. It
Mm.
was just the way that everybody bonded and the fun that we had. I don't remember like backbiting and competition. It was just kind of amazing. And I did it all summer long. And I think anybody that gets a chance to do it is probably pretty lucky, even if it's a bad experience.
Right, right. No, that's so true. And the fact that the story that you created, I think quite a few people are now writing about the camp experience, but they're writing about it from an adult perspective. Like I was thinking our friend
Yeah.
Allison Hammer, who wrote this book Until Next Summer with her buddy Brady, and
Hmm.
their Allie Brady, as they write under that name, and hers is about a camp experience as well.
Yeah.
And I understand that I think she attended something that you created, right? Called
Yeah. She
your
came
own
to summer camp.
bummer camp that you did, right?
Hmm.
In your own town. And tell us about that experience of like what you created, and did it mirror the book? And what was that like to be with a
Yeah.
bunch of grown
It was
women and
It
camping?
was it was so great. So I went to the camp that I had worked at and I said, "Can we rent this place out?" And they were like, "Sure." And I really wasn't sure that I was going to be able to do it, but then we did and we had 60 women from 10 states come and we called it Grown Up Lady Camp. And
Okay.
I people came that knew me, people that came that didn't know me. There were people from my small town, there were students that came from the MFA I taught at, and they all came for a 2-day immersive experience. And we did a lot of the stuff that they do in bummer camp. And we did crafts and water sports, and we had a dance party. And like it was so much fun. And for such a short period of time, there was a whole crew of people that I know are still keeping in touch with each other for
Wow.
just that short couple of days. So it was amazing. It was amazing and also filled with all of the personalities that you might think about when you bring people into the woods and say, okay, now you got to all sleep together in a cabin with eight other people.
Were there any fights? Like
No,
anybody
they were
pull
such
any
good
hair?
sports.
All the stereotypes.
Yeah, there should be, but they were such good sports. They were such good sports. So,
Oh,
nobody complained about anything. They just seemed like they had a great time.
that sounds like a blast.
It
And it's just so
was.
important for women to be friends with each other, to support each other.
Mhm.
And it just made me think about the Tall Poppies,
Yeah.
which, and you are the founder of Tall Poppy Writers. And
Mhm.
like I said earlier, I'm a member of that. Talk a little bit about, women and the friendship and connection of women and how we lift each other up and the importance of that. And also connect that to the book and what sisterhood is really about.
Yeah. I when my first book came out, and to not great applause. Like, it was just, I mean, I was getting a divorce at the same time. I had pneumonia, and I kept trying to get into the small town newspaper in this town that I lived in, and some eighth grader kept getting a 3-pointer, like, and throwing me off the first page. And then finally, like 6 months later, they put me in the newspaper, and I thought, oh my God, I can't even get in my own newspaper. How am I ever going to sell any books? And I thought, well, I don't understand why we're not all helping each other. Like, I can't figure out why we're not just everybody, because we're not all writing a book at the same time. So in between those moments when we're writing and other people are, why not talk about each other? And it was interesting because when I first started it, I had people calling me up and saying, I don't really understand how it helps me to talk about somebody else's book. And whenever somebody would say that, I'd think, okay, well, it's everything. Like, I don't see why we're not competing. And there's not just one peak at the top. Like, new books come out every day. Why not? People read books much faster than they write it. So while I'm writing a book, why don't I talk about Nancy's book? Right. And
Yep.
that's what, rock stars do all the time. They have an opening band. And so little by little, I started getting people to join me in on this track. And it's really been one of the best experiences of women supporting women, without competition, without any sort of, I don't know. There just doesn't seem to be anybody saying, hey, why did she get this? Or why did she get that? It's everybody just kind of working together. And I love it so much. I'm so grateful for everybody. They sort of followed me along on this path. And now we don't even have to regulate it. It just keeps moving along like a
It just
watch.
happens. And it's such a beautiful, supportive community. And I'm very grateful for it. And even in this conversation that we're having right now, there are quite a few of the poppies who are out there cheering us on and listening to us. And that's what it's really about. And I was thinking, even though I'm a poppy, that's not how we met. We hadn't met, but you reached out to me through social media. I don't know if you remember that, because you knew I was writing my first novel, and you were like, was it like a retreat or a residency that you were running? It's fifth semester.
Fifth semester. Yeah.
Yep. And so you were asking me, about joining that, and I don't think the timing was ever right, or the money for me, but it was nice because it was like you stayed in touch with me and following my journey.
Yeah, I was really like, is she done yet? Is she done yet? Because I knew from your posts, I knew from the things that I'd seen you in that you would be perfect for the group. And so I was like, I felt really funny. I was like, is she done with that book? Because I knew as soon as you got done, I was going to swoop in there and go, you can come. Why don't you be one of us now? And honestly, you're one of the perfect people for us for many reasons, not least of which, I hope you'll forgive me saying this, you need us. And you need us because you have a full-time job. You're taking care of your mom, which for many years when the poppies were new, I had a full-time job. I was a single mother of 2 kids, and my mother had dementia. So that's who we want to help. Like, you're the perfect person for it. So
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, my mother has dementia, so very similar story, and I'm in a demanding corporate communications job, and it's hard to find the time.
It's so hard
to write and to do all the things that we need to do, and then to also not just write the books, but then promote the books.
Well, here's the thing, and if you don't promote it, right, then you don't get another book deal, and then one more woman's voice is silenced. And the problem with that too is that the only way that you got a larger voice is to write a book and then another book, and you pull in a few more readers every single time. You pull in a few more readers. So if you don't promote it and sell books, then you don't get another book deal. That all falls away, and another woman gets silenced instead of a stronger voice. And like, I just I cannot have that. Like it
Yeah, the
just
world would be a much worse place, I think, without your
a
voice
much worse
in it.
place. Yeah.
And I think it's important. Each of us has a unique voice, I think, as an
Yeah.
author in the world. And so, talk to me about not just Bummer Camp, but your other books and what we know you write books that are sad and that are funny. And I know you write complex, messy, flawed women, which I
Yeah.
absolutely love. But what is an Ann Garvin novel? What is it, the Ann Garvin voice in the
Yeah.
world?
Always say that like I was talking to my agents the other day and I said I should have my tagline be hard topics made fun by Ann Garvin.
Mhm.
Um because I don't, I was a nurse. Death is a way of life when you're a nurse. And the kinds of things that are most interesting about humanity is how we keep going in the light of knowing that we're all going to die or our loved ones are going to die. And then what are those struggles that make up our lives and change us? And so I I can't really look at anything unless I look at it in a way that both makes me sad and also makes me laugh. And I'm not sure where that comes from, but, like, early on, people would say to me, "You should probably try to pick a lane, like, try to be all funny or all sad," but that's not really who I am. Like, I will see a very sad thing and still laugh. I was laughing at my mother's deathbed because I was with her caregiver, one of her other caregivers, and we were just reminiscing and talking and laughing, and I just see the world that way. And so typically, I think people think sometimes that it's going to be sort of a light-hearted beach read, and then they're surprised that we're going to talk about addiction or or depression or loss of a best friend or death or something like that. And I mean, if we don't talk about those things, I don't know if you're really writing about life.
That's right. That's right. And I love that you said that because I think about I write a lot about race and class and the intersection of those two, and some heavy topics that people
Mhm.
read a lot of nonfiction books about. But when you're approaching those issues through character and story, I think people are able to get into those a little more, ease into it. They don't
Yeah.
feel like they're being attacked and someone's telling you or preaching at you about what you need to do, and it's not didactic at all. And is that the way you think about it with some of the
Yeah.
difficult topics that you're approaching, that people can talk about death or they can talk about some,
Yeah.
divorce or whatever it is through the humor, and
Yeah.
it's an easier way into the material?
Yeah, you slide into the material a little bit. So you're laughing and then something sad happens and you're a little bit surprised, but then you come out of it laughing again. And I
Mhm.
think that's really the only way that we can sort of manage it. And humor is sadness. That's just the mirror of the two.
Yep.
And when I early on, I asked, if I could write a nonfiction book, and they were kind of like, your platform isn't big enough, and
Mhm.
probably, and because I was a scientist for so many years and a nurse and a health educator, but I find that I'm able to talk about the things that I want to more deftly if I do it through a surprising way, a little surprising, funny book that you think is just going to be a lark, and then you find out something a little bit different. When I read The Kindest Lie, I it's there are scenes in that that stay with me over and over, and I read it ages ago. I feel like ages ago, but I think very much about, I'm not going to say it, but like when they're standing on the by the water,
Yeah.
towards
Yep. Yep. In the
towards the
climax
Yep.
scene.
But also before that, when just some of the things that you were talking about, oftentimes when things come up in the news, one of your scenes will flash in my mind. And I've read a lot of nonfiction, but it's not those that come to mind. It's the very fleshed out emotional images that I read in fiction. That's not to say nonfiction isn't amazing. It's
Right.
it. But oftentimes it's the stories that I learn. And I also think, we buy books, but we don't always want to get advice. And so if you're learning from somebody else's path, it's a little bit easier to swallow.
Totally agree. I did a book club once, and a white woman said that she said, my father and I never talk about race, and it's always a source of argument and contention. And she said, I'm buying him a copy, and I want to read it with him
Oh,
and start a conversation with him for the first time. And that's why I do this.
that's
That's why
it.
we do this, right? That's it.
Right. Mhm.
It's not about all those other accolades. It's about making those real human connections
Mhm.
with people through our work and touching them and sparking conversations in those
Mhm.
people. So yeah,
Mhm.
so meaningful. So people be thinking of questions for Ann that you can pass along to us, that Trisha, our friend, Poppy friend behind the scenes, can pass along to us. Um, Getting back to your humor in your work, when did you realize you were funny?
Oh God. I'll tell you what happened.
Yeah.
I was very young, and my brother, as I said, my brother really pulled focus in my family. He had ADHD before they really knew what ADHD was, and he was just a crabby kind of
Mm,
kid. And he pulled so much focus that it was really hard for me to I was the middle kid. It was hard for me to get anybody's attention. And one time my brother came up from the basement having woken up, and he said, well, my dad said, here's Ray, fresh as a daisy. And I said, more like a snapdragon. And it was like the first time my dad laughed, looked at me, and was like, oh. And I realized, oh, you can get somebody's attention with humor.
yeah.
And then I started to kind of look into that a little bit and ease into it and sort of figure it out. I think that I don't know how I figured it out because I was pretty young because I was like in,
Mm,
I don't know, fifth, fourth grade or something then. But and then I had some funny friends, and those funny friends helped me be more funny.
yeah.
Um, and I remember saying, like when we moved to White Pine, I remember saying, "Mom, I used to be funny and I used to be liked." And she's like, "Don't worry, it's fine. It'll
Yeah.
happen again." And so I think I have used it to cope my whole life,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for it, whatever it is. I'm grateful for that little mind that can spin something because it's always helped me, sort of, it helps me look at something, spin it, think about it, and then, talk about it in a way that I think maybe is a little less painful for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about the characters and writing the characters in Bummer Camp, and which ones were the most fun for you to write, and were those the characters that are most like you?
Oh, well, let me think about that. I went Cat the first time I wrote Cat, she was darker and a little edgier. And then as she progressed, she was a little bit less of that. And I wouldn't say she was really fun to write because she's sort of everybody's straight man
Hmm.
and she is the engine for the plot. So I was always very aware of trying to keep her moving and keep the plot going forward. So her sister Ginger was more fun to write
Hmm.
because I was able to do all these quirky things with her because she was this artistic woman who had a lot of sensitivities, but also was sort of outrageous. And so I loved writing her. I loved writing Hot Gary because he was such a surprise for me as I wrote him. I loved um, writing Win, who was this lighthearted cook that put weed in everybody's food. Like it was so much fun to write these characters that had so much freedom and abandon. And I think that's one of the things that you can do at camp because the rules are different. So I had a lot of fun writing those ancillary characters. Like they were a blast to write, like Camille and Matt, the yoga teacher slash, semi-religious woman who hated each other and loved each other. Like it was just really fun to write those dichotomies and put them up against Kat all the time. So it was a lot of fun to write this. It was very playful to write. When I wasn't writing Kat and making sure that she was, moving along.
Being the straight woman.
Yeah,
In the book.
everybody else was really fun to write. Like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I could like really lean into because like I did a book club recently, and this woman said to me, she goes, "So do you have any books that have submarines in them?" And I said, I no. She goes, I'm wild about submarines. I could write any book that has a submarine in it. Man, I'm there. And I'm like, how many books have a submarine in them?
Yeah.
Like, but I love that quirkiness. Like whenever I meet somebody that has that quirkiness where you're like, I like have to write it down. Okay,
Yeah.
submarines. Like it's so bizarre. Or like I knew somebody that knew all the zip codes in Wisconsin. And I was just like, how do you know that? And
Yeah.
I don't know how they
Like
knew it.
random useless facts. Yeah.
I love that quirkiness about people. Like I love the people that are like, I have 75 ships in a bottle down in my basement. And I'm like, that's a kink. And I love it. Like, those are the people that I love to write because I think they're out there and they're hiding, and only their best friends know their weirdness. And I like to shine a light on them.
Yeah. And that makes me think about the playful part of what you're writing and these quirky characters. So it brings me to kind of a craft question, I guess. Like I'm somebody who writes by the seat of my pants typically. And then my editor says, oh, I really need you to plot. And so then I plot, but then dream my way through the rest of it. So with you, it sounds like these characters really do, like they kind of tell you what they're going to do. I don't know if you could plot out all the quirky stuff at the very beginning, right? But I would think as you get to know them, they probably reveal their kink to you a bit.
Yes.
So is that the way you work it, or how does that work? Trying to write the books.
I try first to figure out what am I trying to say with this book?
Mhm.
Like, what am I really doing writing this book for a year? Like it's not just about, this weird little camp in Wisconsin. It's about belonging and understanding that you're not in charge of everything, even though if something fails, it isn't 100% you. And so once I have that and I have the character that is pushing against that all the time, that has to learn that through the course of it, then I can I have an idea of what might happen for that person. And then I sort of consider it. And then once I do that, I don't know, like I write knowing full well that stuff and some key points. And then as I get to know that character and those people, I write them. And I sort of write like you write, sort of like I paint a wall. You do the first coat, and then you do the second coat, and then you do the third coat, and you kind of look at it, and it just takes me a while because I have to learn all those characters and figure out what they're doing. And then I have to make sure that they're changing in the way that I want them to change. It is not a clean process.
No,
It's
it is. But
not
that's
clean.
the fun part, the discovery for me.
It is. It's the super fun part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I interestingly enough, like I was writing today and I was like, that's exactly how I do it. I'll do a version of a chapter, and then I go in there and I move the sentences around and I make them make more sense, and I make sure that people are grounded and where they are, and that the dialogue makes sense and everything is moving forward. And I will do that until the book is done from start to finish. It's probably a little obsessive.
Yeah.
But don't you think you have to be a little obsessive?
To do this. Oh yeah. To do this work, you have to be.
You have to be.
You for sure. And you're living with this work for so long too.
Yeah.
Right. And it's that's just part of what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Do you have any questions? I mean, but you go ahead, Ann. But
I was going to say that, your editor reads it, and then you go back in there and fix it and it's sort of like, it's like a Jenga tower, right? You got to make it sure. And if there's a piece missing, you're going to have to shore it up.
Yeah. Otherwise, the whole thing is going to just.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. It's hard because it's a creative process, but it's also a business too. And you've got editors who apparently know what readers want in a story. They know what's going to sell. And so there's all these competing priorities. And then you're still trying to stay true to the core of the story that you want to tell.
Well, and I sort of know the scaffolding of the story, but so you think, oh, this isn't going to be that bad. And then you spend 20 minutes, 25 minutes on 3 words,
right.
And you're like, well, you forget how granular you get with every single line. And I remember one time I was at the Chicago Writers Conference, and I said every sentence either has to push the plot forward or reveal character or backstory. And this man in the front row, he blurted out every line, and I was like, every line. And he
Every line.
said, and then afterwards he came up to me and he was like, are you serious? Is it every line? And I said, I mean, yeah, it's every line. It has to do the work. And if it doesn't do the work of revealing character, people are
Yeah.
going to stop reading.
Yeah. And it needs to go. You have to be ruthless.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
So he came back the next day and he said to me, hey, he goes, I told my wife about that. And he goes, and I said, yeah. And he goes, she said I don't have to do that. I was like, I bet she's sick of your book. So yeah.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
That is funny.
Yeah. I was like, I get it. God bless her.
Right. Tricia, do we have any questions that have come in? Oh, okay. This one's from Renee. Ann, why is your group called Tall Poppies?
That's such a good question. So here's the reason. There is this research that was done in Australia about women supporting women, but also women not supporting women. And so the idea is if you have poppies in a field and one poppy grows taller, that, if you're a genetic person and you're trying to make all your poppies the same, you cut off the tallest poppy. And so tall poppy syndrome is the idea that when a woman rises up above the rest, the other women and or people that she works for, men, cut her off. And so I wanted to reverse that idea and call us the tall poppies, where everybody gets to grow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
I just was fascinated by that research. I think it's a lot less. It was really hot during the third wave of feminism, but I think what we're seeing now is a fourth wave that there's much less of that. And I think since the tall poppies has, we've been around for 12 years or something, I have definitely seen the whole world of promotion change so that it's rare that you don't see authors interviewing each other and talking about each other's books. But it wasn't the case when I started. Everybody worked in a silo. And
I can't even imagine that world.
It was no fun. I think the only people that really did a pretty good job were the romance people. And then, maybe the crime people were doing it, but certainly, but those were very niche areas. Like the thing about the tall poppies is that, we have nonfiction, we have a middle grade book, we have, thriller and book club fiction and historical fiction. And so we have all kinds of things. We're not just a group of, one type of book.
Yeah, all kinds of books. And there's so much opportunity, not just promoting books when they're about to be released, which we of course do, but also talking behind the scenes in our, channels about the industry and, publicity and marketing and all the things that nothing about until you get in it. And it's trial by fire. That's for sure.
Oh my God, isn't it?
And it's not like you figure it out after you've written a book or after you've written 10 books, right? Like,
and it changes, and honestly, nobody's figured it out, right?
No.
Even the very famous ones, I think, would be hard pressed to tell you why they're famous. Like they would be like, I don't know. It just wasn't the right time.
And then TikTok comes along, and it's like, what do you do with that? And you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah, you're trying to figure it out. Any more questions, Tricia? All right, Nancy, I'm a big fan. Oh, nice. Why do you gravitate toward historical timelines, and how does history inspire me? That's a really good question. Yeah, my first novel, The Kindest Lie, is contemporary, but yet it's set in 2008 at the dawn of the Obama era. And so I'm usually interested in things that have happened in the past, or whether it's recent past or distant past, like in People of Means, where I'm talking, civil rights movement, and then 1992 at the time of the acquittal of those 4 white officers for the beating of Rodney King. Those are the time periods in my second novel. And I think I'm interested in the things that have happened in the past because I like to think about how they inform the present. And so what I'm writing is, even though it might be something that's set in the past, it's still timely and it's
Yeah.
still timeless in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I wrote, or actually when I published The Kindest Lie in 2021, we had just had the 2020 presidential election, which was a
Yeah.
momentous election at the time, right? So I'm able to look at what happened during the Obama era and where we were with race and class. And then there were so many parallels to where we were as a country in 2021, especially after the summer of 2020 with the murder of George Floyd. And then, so then writing People of Means, I'm looking back at the civil rights movement. I'm looking back at all this resistance and what is the role that we play at moments of racial strife, social strife, and resistance. And then it speaks to where we are today. We're dealing with some of the very same issues. So it's kind of like, the things I'm talking about in the 1950s and 60s could really be happening today because of the issues that we're facing. And so I like to be able to draw those kinds of parallels. And again, like I was saying to you earlier, and that people don't want to be lectured to. So, not like I want to write a book about, what's happening in the world right now, but if I write about it through the lens of people coming of age in 1959 and 1960 or 1992, they can connect with some of the issues that we're grappling with today. But they have the distance. You know what I mean? The distance makes a big difference to have that distance of time to be able to really interrogate some of those issues.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question.
And I really admire you writing historical fiction. I think it adds an element of difficulty to it that I don't think I could do, frankly. I'm not sure I could do it.
It is. And I'm trying to do both because The Kindest Lie was considered contemporary. And then this People of Means was really my first foray into historical. But it's interesting when you think about writing historical fiction today because the marketing people are not marketing the cover of the book. I showed you the cover of it.
Yeah.
It's not, like your typical
it isn't
cover, right? So we do a lot of different things with books now and how we market them and promote them. I dropped it on the floor. That's what happened. Yeah, so it's not like a traditional historical fiction,
it's not.
Right?
Yeah.
So
which is good because I think they wore those covers out.
I know they all start to, look the same after a while. I agree. And so I know my editor and I did not want that look.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you and your covers of books? Like how do you
they pretty much take care of it. They usually will send me a few things that I can sort of play with. This one was a little different. There was a pregnant lady right here swimming, and I was afraid that people would think it was like bummer camp, the pregnant high school kid camp or something, So we took that off. I was worried that people would, and it really, the primary character is pregnant, but she didn't get pregnant at camp and she doesn't have the baby at camp.
Yeah.
So it was, I thought it was a little bit too much, but I think that they have done beautiful jobs on my covers.
Really nice. Yeah.
I would not want to do that. Like, I'm pretty sure that if you left me to it, I would not do a good job.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that they give me some say in the designs, but I'm also grateful that I don't have to be an expert in design.
Me too. But yet they listen to us and they take our input and feedback into consideration when they're designing it. So it feels like a collaborative process.
It does. I've had really good success with my covers with that. Yeah.
Me too. Anything else, Trisha? Any other questions? Okay, what actors would play your main characters in the Bummer Camp movie? All right, let's cast it.
Well, honestly, I'm not sure if she's too old now, but I think Tina Fey would be really funny as Kat. She'd be so great because she's so good at playing like a baffled straight lady, but also being funny. I think she would be fantastic. And who would probably, I don't even know her name, but oh my God, I love her so much. She's a woman that plays comedic roles and she's got a very funny voice. I can't think of who she is. Anyway.
Fran Drescher.
No,
Okay.
but that did sound like her. No, I can't even tell you what movie she's been in. She's like somebody that you see right away and you think, "Oh my god, I love her." But I don't always think I can come up with her name.
Yeah.
And then, I don't do that too much because I don't want it to influence my character development.
Right.
So, but I did in the last book, There's No Coming Back from This. I based the movie star in it on Steve Carell because he
Mhm.
like seemed perfect for the part. But I rarely do that because I just want them to be whoever they are.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I'm always stumped in book club discussions when people ask about who should play different characters because I haven't really thought about it.
Me neither, and I know people think about it all the time, but, like,
They
I
do.
just really don't. And then also, like, on the incredible off chance that
Yeah.
that's gonna be a movie or something, I don't wanna
Right.
get disappointed. So, if I think too much about, "Oh, this is that person," and then they put somebody else in there, which they would.
Right. They would. And
Mhm.
they could reimagine it, that
Yeah.
character in some ways, in some new ways. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I kinda leave it alone a little bit, like,
Okay.
yeah, I leave
This
it
has
there.
been so much fun, and
So much fun.
I
It's so good to
know.
see you.
It's good to see you too. So tell me where people can find you on social media.
Yep, I am most active these days on Instagram.
Okay.
I occasionally get my act together and will do some tweet and threads and Facebook, but I tend to just really, there's not a lot of bells and whistles to Instagram where
Right.
Facebook wears me out. And so I check it a little bit, but there's so much stuff going on that I get a little overwhelmed. So Instagram is probably the best place to find me. I also write a newsletter with an original essay every month, and it's free. And so if anybody signs up on my website, they will get an email from me. It's always randomly placed in the month based on, if I've showered and have time to write an essay. But but I have a lot of subscribers and I only ever bug them once a month. So
Okay. What's your website where they can get to your
it's
newsletter?
it's just anngarvin.com.
Okay. AnnGarvin.com. Well,
Hmm.
thank you so much, Ann Garvin, and everybody. Make
Yes.
sure you read Bomber Camp, y'all.
Thank
Bomber
you.
Camp, get it. It's on
Thank you
sale
so
now,
much for
available
this.
everywhere books are sold. Please, please, please support your local independent bookstores as much as you can. Also, go to bookshop.org too. It's another way to support independent bookstores and get these books.
Yep.
So, thank you so much, Ann. This was
You're
so
so
much
welcome.
fun.
Thank
Yep.
you for
Yeah.
having me.
Of course. And thank you to everybody out there in the Mighty Blaze family. We will see you next time.